The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. Wealth Builders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 114 of Wealth Talk. My name is Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for Wealth Builders, and I'm joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you again, sir.
Yes, and it's the morning after the closure of our Academy launch month, and what a month it's been. So a very, very warm welcome to all of our new members who've joined us, and we can't wait to get started with you.
I'm very much looking forward to that. We had a Q&A session, didn't we? Very informal, people asking questions last night, which I enjoyed enormously. And it's been good to see the enthusiasm for people to want to take control of their wealth and want to kind of make a commitment to it, as opposed to, drifting, which often people can get caught up with that drift, as indeed our spotlight today will demonstrate.
Yes, that's right. It's the first week of the month, so we always like to shine a spotlight on one of our members. And today, that member is Danni Wade, and Danni's one of our founders and a wonderful contributor, Kevin.
Yeah, she's great, and I think, hats off. We wanted to pick Danni out really because of her warmth, her generosity of time, her generosity of spirit, her humility, and her willingness to give to everybody. She's contributed some of her own IP into the program even, so she's just a really great person to have in the community. And what I love about Wealth Builders more than anything else is we attract really, really good people, nice people you'd be proud to be associated with. No time wasters, no other language I could use for people. She's just a great person to have, and I'm so pleased that you managed to get some good lessons from the story.
Yeah. So as always, we'll be walking through our 9-step recurring revenue roadmap today, and we'll hear Danni's journey. So let's head on over. Danni, welcome to Wealth Talk today.
Oh, thanks, Christian.
Danni, it's great to have you with us. And you're one of our founder members who joined back in July 2019. So we are pretty much at 2 years into your journey.
I know that it's gone so, it feels like a really long journey in a way, just because so much has happened. But at the same time, it's gone really quickly.
Yeah, and you have been a fantastic contributor every step of the way, Danni. So we've really enjoyed seeing your journey, and we're going to hear all about it today. So what we're going to do is walk through the recurring revenue roadmap, which obviously is our 9-step process to help members move from a place of financial insecurity onwards towards financial independence. We know that journey takes on average 5 years. So you're 2 years in, Danni, and let's begin at the beginning then. So step 1 is all about mindset. And we always ask our members to really kind of dial into their reason why. Why is it important to build wealth, and what's motivating you? So was there a particular catalyst or a point that you can think back to, Danni, where you decided that you were ready to take some action?
Yeah, I think not one huge catalyst like a lot of people have, but growing up, I saw how hard my mum was working and, didn't see her much because of the hours that she was putting in. So it was something, that we were really pushed, I guess, to look at what we were going to do with our careers. And we were asked, as you get asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that changed in very early years from wanting to be a vet at some point. I think when I was about 5, 6, I think I was about 7 when my answer changed to, I just want to earn more money than mum. And I think from there, it was always just chasing the money. And I think that's why I've been in sales for over 20 years. So I ended up quitting college within a few months because I was selling double glazing part-time and it was going really well, and realised how much I could be earning at 16. So went from there and then, did that for a while. And then I was like, right, what do I need to do next? And, made a very conscious decision to get into advertising, then made a very conscious decision to get into IT sales. And now I've been in MarTech sales for over 13 years. So the money has always been very important. But I think when you then start to realise that the amount of time I spend working now And, yes, I have a very good salary and that affords me a nice lifestyle. What's my retirement going to look like? My pension alone is not going to afford me the lifestyle I want. And if you think about the amount of free time you expect to have once you retire, you think, well, how much money? I'm going to need a lot more money than I have now. I'm going to need a lot more disposable income to live that nice lifestyle. So it's just having, I guess, that sense of security, not only for now, but for the future as well. I don't ever want to be in a position where, we're struggling or can't help the kids out with something, should they need it.
And when we launched Wealth Builders membership back in 2019, Danni, it was called the Foundation Program back then. Can you remember what attracted you to join the program and why you decided to work with Wealth Builders?
Yeah, so I came across you because of SAS. So my property mentor, Carol, mentioned SAS pensions to me. I'd never, ever heard of it. And so that's how I came across Wealth Builders. And I was definitely one of those people. I was always looking for that thing to invest in that would, add that layer of security and give that extra income. And I had made so many mistakes. And I think that for me was really frustrating. I was wanting to do the right things. I was wanting to invest. I was wanting to do that. But there's so much false, wrong information out there and people with not the right ethics, let's say, that you end up, can make some costly mistakes. And I definitely did that. So finally, I just felt once I looked at, and I'd heard of you from Escape the Rat Race. I worked in London and it was one of those things I'd meant to go along to and never had. So your name was familiar. And then when I looked into Kevin, I just felt that this was finally a place that wasn't just focusing on one source of income. Like for me, yes, I'm interested in lots of I want more than one stream of income. And so many things out there just focus on property or just focused on investments. And this was that really holistic approach that I was looking for, structured with the detail. And I felt with the right people leading it, that it wasn't just going to be another one of those things where you just kept being upsold to something else to learn the next bit of information.
Great. So that's step one. You connected with your why. You also created your family wealth business name and logo, which was really great. So that moves us into step two then, Danni, which we call the foundation. So this is really about getting crystal clear on how big the gap is from where you are to where you want to get to. So how much asset income you actually need in order to become financially independent. And can you remember, obviously, where you were right at the beginning and, where are you down the journey now?
So I was at the insecurity level and I still am. So, 2 years into the journey, I have built that asset wealth. I have built income, but it's not where it needs to be yet. However, what I would say is that I'm completely certain that I will reach security and independence. And for those that are familiar with the program will understand those levels. But it does take time. And I think you've just got to learn to enjoy the journey. I see so many people start getting into, the self-development and the focus on wanting to grow wealth. And suddenly they decide that they hate their day job and they are going to throw everything into it. And that can work. But, when I'm working full time, I've got a family and everything else to think about. There has to be a balance. Otherwise, you're just going to burn out, and you do need to enjoy the journey. It's not always going to be easy. So give yourself a break. Make sure you're having time to recharge, and so that you can go again, and just be really clear, as you say, with that why. Keep connecting with that, and it will keep you going.
Yeah, you're making great progress. And we know that you have to give wealth building time. And that's the key, is not giving up, continuing. So yeah, great progress so far. So that moves us into step three then, Danni, which is all about putting a strong roof in place. And were you able to review the roof when you joined Danni? And have you started, putting some of those things into place now?
Yeah, so the thing I did straight away was change the home ownership status. So again, I couldn't, as someone who was proactively always looking for this type of information, that was a revelation. So and it's very, very easy for anyone to do. It's free. All you need to do is fill in a form. So it's changing from, and I don't know if I get this around the right way. So it's you change from joint tenants to tenants in common. I think that's the right way. And yeah, so that was really easy. Literally just took a form and I shared that link with so many people I knew to just say, this is something you have to do. And I've always had wills in place. I've always had lots of insurance in place. So, but the will, turns out it wasn't exactly where it needed to be. So in the process, it's taken me a little while. It's pretty much written up. I just need to sort some things out in regards to the kids, power of attorney and that sort of thing, but almost there with getting really solid wills in place.
Excellent. So that's stage one then, Danni. So that's, having a strong foundation, really being clear on where you are right now, where you want to get to, giving you that peace of mind, knowing that everything is protected. You've reviewed your outgoings. You're ready now to move into stage two, which is all about building knowledge. And step 4, which is assets. So we know there are 7 different assets, which we call pillars. And which did you already have some experience with when you joined, Danni? And what other pillars have you been able to utilize since?
So when I joined, I had just started my property journey and property training. So that was something that I was in the early days of. So that was one, as I mentioned at the beginning, how I came about Wealth Builders was because of the SSAS pension. So I've also done that. My SSAS is ready, invested and ready to put into investments. So that is the initial strategy for my SSAS. I will be looking at other ways of leveraging that for my property pillar. Business. So I set up a business and within that business, I'm building IP. So there's a course that is launching later this year. My book is half written. I've been doing lots of podcasts and learning social media. And that has led to a JV relationship that is going to be critical, I think, in helping me launch my course later this year in terms of leveraging their existing mailing list. It's a training company and they feel that the course, which is all around productivity, is going to be really helpful for their students and audience.
Fantastic. Did you mention home capacity there?
Oh, no, I didn't. No, yes, home capacity as well. So yeah, home capacity, took some of the equity out of the home to fund the property pillar. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think at least 5 pillars there.
Yes.
In play. Yeah, if not 6. But that's a pretty good effort there, Danni. So, all right, next step then in stage 2 is about leverage. So leverage is key to wealth building. And it isn't necessarily always financial leverage, but it could be intellectual leverage or relationship leverage, system leverage, or time leverage. So can you provide us with an example of how you've brought leverage into play to help build your wealth?
Yeah, so I guess home capacity is one of those, leverage that financially to help build my wealth in the property pillar. And one of our early conversations turned into us looking at the IP side of things. So coaching was always something I was very interested in. And as you know, I was a goal mapping coach also when I came to Wealth Builders. But I always wanted to create something of my own, but I just wasn't sure on what it is. And all it took was you asking me one question, which was, what does everyone say to you? What's the one thing people come to you on? And it was then suddenly really, really obvious and clear. And I didn't know why I hadn't thought of it before. But everything happens for a reason. Obviously, the time was right then for me to really think about building my IP, which is around that productivity side of things, and managing lots of roles and commitments and hats and whatever you want to call it. So that has that's in progress still. It has been a longer journey than I expected, as most things are. But as I say, I'm now on a strong trajectory to launch in September. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, so good use of intellectual leverage there, of what you already knew, what you were already interested in, what you were good at, and then obviously your relationship with Wealth Builders and us having that chat. But leveraging now further relationships, because I believe that's leading to you having an opportunity to speak in front of quite a large crowd later this year to promote your business.
Yeah, so I guess that's where the JV element comes in. So that is leveraging an existing relationship I had with a training company and them seeing what I was building and them resonating with it and thinking it would be of benefit. So yes, I'm going to be at their event on stage in September, and also there's going to be an offer going out to their mailing list as well. So I'd have never dreamt of anything like that happening. It is a very large mailing list, so it just shows that you've just got to keep going. It's just, that next step you take can be the game changer. So just don't give up, even when things aren't always going to plan.
No, and I think that's a testament to your character, Danni, because you haven't given up at all over the last 2 years. And I know that obviously, like everybody, there's highs and lows and ups and downs and brick walls that you have to smash through, and you've just kept on smashing through them. And FIRST is the acronym we use for leverage, and T is for time. And of course, now you're using your ability to really maximize your time and help others with productivity. But you mentioned on our Q&A last night that you had a call with your coach, John Dale. And, maybe you could just share with us, how you thought you hadn't had a very good month, but then John kind of helped you realize all the things that you had been doing.
I know. I need to drink my own medicine a lot more sometimes. It's just, I keep track, and it's everything I do to be productive is about keeping track of things. And I think it's just constantly trying to keep your own expectations in check. So with John, I fill in my pre-call form of, what I've achieved that month. And I think I'd written a paragraph to say, not that much has happened this month. But then I went on to list everything that had happened. And all he had to do was just read it back to me for me to go, oh, yeah, okay. It has been a good month. And I think it was actually that month I'd had less time. The day job had been crazy, crazy busy. But what I had done is get some of those relationships in place, which means now that I've got a really good platform to launch. And it was the accumulation of all of the effort of probably 18 months worth of effort that's led to that opportunity. But actually, it didn't take that much time to bring that opportunity to life. It took a couple of emails and a phone call. So I think, it felt like the effort hadn't been the same as previous months, but actually when you look at the outcome, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. So you definitely do fit a lot into the time. And as you said, working a full-time job, 2 children, husband, lots of demands, but you're still managing to take action every month. So that's great. So we're moving through the roadmap now, Danni, and we're on to the final step of stage 2. So that's step 6, which is strategy. So we've heard the pillars that you've engaged. We've heard where you found leverage. So let's dive into some of the strategies that have helped you increase your thermometer over the last few months. So perhaps starting with the property pillar, what strategy have you followed there?
So with property, it's been BRR, which is the buy, refurbish, rent, and actually refinance. So it's almost the BRR. So yes, that has so I had another property complete this year. So that has been really good to just learn the ropes on, a couple of smaller projects. And the second project was significantly more complex than the first, and looking to move into holiday lets as the next strategy under property to really give that income a boost.
Excellent. And then, we've so many other pillars to choose from, right? So you mentioned the pension pillar. So I guess the strategy there was to create your SAS. And then that's sort of led into a strategy now of investment by the sounds of things. And then the business pillar strategy is building your brand and developing an online training course.
Yeah, so there's been building a Facebook group. There's been running masterminds and all sorts to just test all of the content. So I guess that's why it's taken so long. But it's been such an amazing process to go through. When I look back at the first version of the course to where it is now, I'm just so confident. And it was definitely the right thing to do to go through that. I know people launch courses within weeks sometimes, but that's a beta version really. So I think I'm going to be bringing to market something really solid. And by the time I get started, it'll be almost 2 years in the making when it launches. So yes, that's been really good. So I'm hoping to see a boost of income from that when that launches later in the year.
Yeah, looking forward to that very much. Okay, so we're now moving into stage 3 of the roadmap, and this is all about building assets. And it begins with step 7, which is focus. So once someone's chosen the strategy, Danni, then the key is to follow the wheel of wealth. And we know that means education, support, connections, due diligence, and then taking guided action. And that's where our wealth coaches are there every month to help you stay laser focused and turn the wheel. So what benefits have you gained, Danni, from following this process and having that accountability every month?
Yeah, for me, it's really good. As I said, I made some costly mistakes before joining WealthBuilders, and that lends itself completely to my wealth dynamic, which is star creator supporter, where I just tend to go with my gut. So it has just brought the right processes in place and just is a sounding board, if nothing else, to be honest. Like, depending on the call, sometimes it is a bit more strategic, but sometimes it's just the opportunity to talk to someone who gets it. And that's one of the biggest benefits of not just the wealth coach, but the whole community, is that you've got a safe place to talk about this stuff. It's not really the type of thing you talk about down the pub. I don't know if it's just a British thing, but there's this thing about you can't really talk about how much you earn. You can't really talk about too much of what's going really well. It's just so nice to have that community and the support of a coach who's completely aligned, knows the whole thing. They know everything about what you're trying to achieve, what you're working on. So that in itself is so helpful.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I know a lot of good friendships and relationships have been developed from the WealthBuilders community, and we've barely had a chance to even meet face to face, have we, over the last 15 months or so? So looking forward to that indeed. All right, step 8 now is results. And we know that results come in lots of different shapes and sizes. So, of course, we have the wealth chart, up on the wall. We've got the wealth thermometer there. But recurring income doesn't happen every month. We know that you have to put the work in. And sometimes there's months where there's different types of results. Perhaps it's contacts that you've made. It's just general boost in confidence. So, obviously, this year's been good for you, Danni. So what are some of the results that you've had?
So I think I've mentioned them. I think the key thing has been, the biggest win for me has been securing this relationship and leveraging that relationship that's going to really help me with the course launch. Because I think anyone that's created some sort of content knows that it could be the best content in the world, but if no one knows about it, you're not going to be able to sell it. So that has been huge. And it's just been, having yourself as well as that sounding board and that knowledge with IP that's just really helped me to kind of keep going and focusing on just taking the next steps and not getting too overwhelmed with the bigger picture and what we're trying to achieve with that.
Yeah. And how much have you added to your thermometer this year so far, Danni?
So this year it's at £658.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Great result. Okay, final step is step 9, and this is accelerate. So we know that this stage is all about implementation, stage 3, and this can lead into year 2, year 3, all the way to year 5 is just constantly refining the process, turning multiple wheels. But to accelerate yourself towards financial independence is obviously compounding those efforts, turning multiple wheels. And for most people, the journey, as we say, it takes several years. But what do you see as being key in helping you continue to stay focused and to take the necessary steps to reach your own financial goals, Danni?
I think it's just staying focused on the end goal. And I think, as I said at the beginning, enjoying the process. I feel the level of desperation has gone, and I feel everyone that you get overexcited at first when you start something new, don't you? And you have these huge visions of things happening much quicker than they're actually going to happen. And, you can decide to hate your day job and resent it and, all of those things. And it's just actually, that's not, you've got to enjoy the journey. It's going to take a while. You've got to trust the process. I completely trust that I will be able to achieve what I want to achieve. For me personally, some will do that on just one pillar or one strategy. For me, I feel as the breadwinner for my family, it's always been really important for me to have two strong sources of income before I even consider getting out of the rat race. I feel like that's the sensible thing to do. Who knows what will happen with property, or something could happen. And the worst thing that I can think of is getting myself out of the rat race and then ending up in a position where I need to go and get a job again. So that is not an option. So I will really focus primarily on property and the business stroke IP as the primary focus to get me to where I need to be. And then I've got other things obviously going on in the background as well, with SaaS and that sort of thing that I'll be able to also leverage.
Yeah. And as I said before, you're such a great contributor in the community, Danni, always in there in the Facebook group, and your name's always popping up amongst other members for the help and support that you're there providing. And of course, you've recorded the goal mapping module in the Academy program. So for anyone who's a current member who's been mapping out their vision for the future, they'll be familiar with you, obviously, in that section as well. So thank you very much for contributing to the program.
No worries at all. I think it's a great and simple tool that everyone can use. Yeah,
good. Well, look, Danni, so good to hear your journey so far. And we're only halfway through this year, so I can't wait to see what's going to take place in the next 6 months. So thanks once again for sharing today with us.
Thanks for all your support, and to the wider team as well.
Okay, I enjoyed that very much. Hope you did too. So we'll go into the debrief on that in just a moment, Kevin. But before we do that, let's head on over to Trustpilot and scroll through. And we have had some reviews in the last 7 days, but one I'm looking at here is from Helen. And Helen says, thumbs up to the Academy. I first came across Kevin Whelan at a SaaS conference in 2019. I spoke to him and Gary several times before making a decision regarding my SaaS, and I never felt like they were trying to coerce me into using their service. Kevin also introduced me to the WealthBuilders Academy, which has been a significant step in my wealth building journey. And I found a community of like-minded people willing to offer help and advise each other on their journeys. I found support from the team, including Christian and Richco, invaluable, willing to help provide information feedback as much as they can. And there's a bit more, but I think that sums things up pretty well.
Well, there's that word community again, Chris. And I just love the power of community over DIY. I mean, I think I remember saying, part of the challenge, and indeed on the program itself, part of the challenge why it took me, a number of years, 15 years actually, to get from a thought to financial independence. Well, now you can get from that thought to financial independence in 5 years or even less. So it's just so much more quicker when you've got the support of a really strong community. And as you said there very elegantly, Helen, thank you so much for that. Like-minded people, not different-minded people, people of a like mind. And when you put people of a like mind together, you get a mastermind. And that's masterminding. And that gives acceleration. It's different perspectives, different ways of looking at things in a selfless way. People giving back warmly and generously without necessarily at all, actually, trying to act in any kind of selfish or self-serving way.
Absolutely, and the guidance every month from our wealth coaches. And over the last few weeks, we've heard from some of our coaches. We had Ian Halfpenny talking about the dangers of building wealth in isolation, and then just last week we heard from Carol Robinson, and that was really focused around step one of the roadmap, which is all about finding your why. And that, of course, was the starting point for Danni and for all of our members, and for Danni in particular, a common story that we hear, Kevin, looking into the future, looking at the pension and thinking, well, if I just carry on this path, it's not going to get me to where I want to get to.
Well, yeah, I remember that thought myself. So, we hear that thought played out when people have some quiet reflection on their careers. And even if they enjoy their careers, they just know that from a financial viewpoint, it's not going to bode well, which is why so many people now actually working into their 70s, because, the financial rewards of what's left after they've done the job and saved some money with the uncertainty of the stock market and very poor interest rate returns is a life of uncertainty. And I didn't fancy that at all, and neither did she.
Yeah. And another thing that Danni pointed out was, that she had made some costly mistakes in the past. And again, that's a common story. One, myself as well. And it's easy when you first kind of get switched on to this other world, shall we say, of entrepreneurial endeavors, especially when you've, just been in the corporate employed lifestyle for so long. And then you suddenly realize, wow, there's other things that I could be doing. And the search begins online and you just get bombarded with so many different things. You really don't know which way to turn and who to trust. And, for many people, they invest in themselves with good intentions, and it ends up often, disappointingly. And, we try our best, Kevin, to steer people in the right direction as early as possible.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, Chris, because you're right. When I know that's more your life, and Danni's was really corporate. When you come out of corporate, or when you're in corporate rather, there's a structure around you. Everybody is working for the same company, so there's at least some common objective. But as soon as you kind of look wider, you take the vista of the wider world, and you start to see, well, wherever you Google, however you start, it's a very dangerous place, because you can be either you can make mistakes of your own, where you just make a decision about what you think is interesting, and or you think would be a good strategy, but you don't really know enough about yourself, or you don't really know enough about what's needed or the finances, and you can make mistakes that way. That sets you back from a financial point of view, a confidence point of view, and of course a time point of view, and that could disappoint you and derail you. Or, which is we do sometimes see, and that's lamentable, but nonetheless it's out there, is there are others where their intentions are not as honourable as you'd expect, where their sole ambition is to make profit from you, and their values and your outcomes are not aligned. And sometimes difficult to see that through the power of hype and the power of, glossy people and glossy brochures, as we often refer to them, Chris. And we do everything in our power to be the exact opposite of that. Not glossy, definitely down to earth. Money back guarantees, reputation and integrity is everything. And I hope that comes across. And I think it generally comes across, Chris, in the reviews as well, doesn't it? That people Helen just said there, she met me, and while she's doing things, she never felt under pressure or coerced in any way, shape or form. And all we do is try and guide people to understand things and help them make decisions without trying to we're not concerned if people make the decision or not, as long as they've had enough good information and they feel as if they're giving us a good hearing, because this is our area of expertise. It's what we do. Wealth Builders is named appropriately because we help people become financially independent and build their wealth. It's not called Wealth Reducers, Chris. It's called Wealth Builders.
Yeah, and another couple of words that we see often in the reviews and echoed by Danni again. There were holistic and structured. So we know obviously that we have a process, and that's tried and tested, and it's holistic as well, not just focused on any one strategy or area.
And that's really important, because when, I said it, I remember saying it on the for people who are interested in the program, Chris, that the journey of building wealth is a transformation. It's a transformation of money, a transformation of self. And this is important because when you change yourself, you get a different view of the world. You get to see different things. It's a bit like, the days before travel, all of a sudden when aeroplanes made travel more cheaply. I know we'll go back to that sometime soon, but you got to see other countries, you got to see other cultures, you got to see other ways of life and other perspectives. And this is the same with wealth. It's a journey, and you need to understand then you're going to see different things. So you don't want to be looking at building your wealth in just one thing, because one of anything is always dangerous. One job, one business, one method of building wealth. So the reason why Wealth Builders is structured this way is to allow you to look at all of the assets. And there are only 7. I've tried long and hard, Chris, and we've got that standing thing out there. If you can help me find number 8, I'll send you a very fine case of champagne. But nobody's come up with it. And because they don't come up with it, the dog's having a good go.
I think Alan might have found it, yeah.
My dog, Alan, yeah. He's named after Alan Shearer, of course. But he's trying hard to say, I know another asset.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And, you've got to give it time. We've said this, and Danni's 2 years into her journey. We know that you have to give wealth building time, and also you've got to enjoy it, and you've got to take some time out to recharge and reflect. And that came across again in a conversation with Danni's coach, that she'd been so busy, didn't think she'd made some progress, but actually when she just took that time to reflect and bounce that off her coach, realizing the progress that she's really powering through.
Well, there's a couple of points to make here. The first one is 2 years might sound a lot. It's not actually, because when you've got a full-time job and you're raising a family and you've got other things, it's not 2 years. If you think about the number of hours, it's how many hours does she put into it every month, and then you multiply that. So it's really about getting the most out of those few hours. So it's not really 2 years. It's X number of hours. The other point is, when we get involved in the program, and of course, very early in that journey, we ask people to identify the difference between where they are now in terms of recurring income, which is often 0, to where they want to be. That gap is pretty large. So they're always focused on the gap between where they are now and where they want to be. And when you're always looking at the gap, you're always got a feeling, or there's a temptation to have a feeling of disappointment, because the gap is still large and you forget how far you've come. And that's the point she made, that her coach reminded her just by saying, tell me what you've done again this month. And that point meant she actually got to see that she was making progress, but was sort of beating herself up a little bit about what that progress looked like.
I think most people overestimate what they can do in 12 months, and they underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years. And, sometimes when we have the first induction call and we speak to people and, we say, okay, well, so where do you want to be in 12 months? And, perhaps people think they can probably achieve more, but the first 12 months is really just getting the foundations in place. And of course, people join at different stages of their life. Some people already have, significant property and they're already well on the path and they're looking for different things. But, you've still got to, you learn the process, haven't you? You understand about turning the wheel, making sure that becomes a habit, really understanding all the different points of leverage, all the different ways to generate wealth across the 7 pillars. And, that first 12 months is often just getting clear and getting confident in that process. And years 2 and 3 are really when the pace picks up.
Yeah, because, if you think about building a home, for example, the first period of time you're spending is going below ground to allow the foundation to have enough depth to make stability. And that's really part of what you have to do. It's not just about your finances, it's your mindset, it's the relationship you have with your partner or whatever, trying to get all of these things aligned. So, and like a farmer, you've got to plant the seed before you can reap it. So this is just the natural law. I don't think Danni was complaining about the speed of things. I think she just occasionally was beating herself up thinking, well, I'm not making enough progress, but she's making progress aplenty. And if nothing else, she's building a thermometer's on the rise, of course. She's got some new ideas, that we'll talk about with IP, and that's important to recognize that. And I think that was you who helped to recognize that she had IP. And that even if sometimes you can beat yourself up over the speed. You're making progress, and it will happen. It's a kind of like an accelerated journey, like a car. You start off in first gear, but you can't get to 70 miles an hour in first gear. Well, you could, but you'd burn the bloody engine out, wouldn't you, really? So you've got to go through the gears, and that's important to recognize that it's exactly like that.
Yeah, and actually, if you remember Danny saying just at the beginning there that she is now absolutely certain that she will hit her goals, which is just so great to hear that.
Yeah.
All right, well, congratulations again, Danny, and for all of our members who every month are making fantastic progress. And we hope you enjoyed listening to that today. Kevin, we'll be back with another episode of Wealth Talk, same time, same place next week.
Mm-hmm. And until then, my friend, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.